Ohio State and Texas play each other in week 1 in Ohio Stadium, and they could play each other in Ohio Stadium in the first round of the college football playoff when it's all said and done in the regular season. Or maybe they could face off against each other again in the semifinal, quarterfinal, or even this could be one of the games that kicks off the college football season, and then it's the game that ends the regular season in the national championship. I mean, the odds say these are top 3 teams in terms of odds to win it all, to hoist that trophy, along with Georgia. These are 2 of the best recruiting programs, 2 of the best developmental programs, 2 of the best coaching staffs in all of America. Ohio State's here by 2.5 points right now per FanDuel. This is going to be a noon game. Kickoff is at noon Eastern time, so 11 a.m. Central time for Texas folks. And what is exciting about this matchup here is how exciting and close and competitive the Cotton Bowl was. It was one of the more, if not the most entertaining game of the playoffs last season, outside of maybe the Orange Bowl between Notre Dame and Penn State. The semifinals were awesome. Quarterfinals were a little bit boring, blowouts, and then Notre Dame, Georgia, due to the postponement of the game due to the tragic terrorist attack and just how bad that game was offensively, was boring. First round games got out of hand pretty quickly. And the national championship game was exciting at the end because Notre Dame staged a comeback that failed. It was a blowout for 50% of the game in favor of Ohio State, and you knew Ohio State was the better team. In the Cotton Bowl, you didn't exactly know who was better. Once Golden went down, it was clear that Ohio State was, but at the beginning and then factoring that in and the fact that Texas was actually picked by FPI to win that game, wasn't exactly clear who the better team was until it was all said and done. And Ohio State was the better team, the better coach team. But Texas was the more well-rounded team. Texas was the more balanced team. And you see that this season. A lot of preview magazines, a lot of people think that Texas is better than Ohio State. And a lot of it honestly has to do, when I read those preseason previews and get people's thoughts, a lot of it has to do with balance. Before we resume this segment, please take a few seconds of your time to make sure you have liked the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and for any team podcasts and playlists linked in the description, and also comment your thoughts down below in the comment section and join my Discord server via the description. All of those things I just asked you to do are completely free, and they sign you up for things related to my channel, or they don't sign you up for anything. No cost to you, and all the benefit to you because we release daily college football content here on College Football with Sam. If you want to support the channel monetarily, sign up for a YouTube membership, or check any other links in the description for my merchandise store and Patreon page. Thank you very much, and let's get back to the segment. And the fact that they feel like Texas has a more balanced roster and Ohio State's is more concentrated, and Texas also returns a little bit more, and their projected starting quarterback in Arch Manning has more games under his belt and is older than Julian Sayin. And they have more staff continuity than Ohio State does. So Ohio State is favored 2.5 points. 3-point home field advantage is the Vegas standard. So Vegas is telling you either these teams are identical in power ratings or Texas is slightly better. Definitely Ohio State's the favorite due to the fact they don't lose at home under Ryan Day or Urban Meyer, and Ohio State is the largest and one of the most engaged fan bases in America, so whenever they're an underdog, their entire fan base rallies to bet Ohio State to cover as a favorite. So you always have to factor those things in. With this line at 2.5, very sketchy, but let's move past that and get to looking at these teams. Arch Manning and how good he is a big question for Texas. Will he be good, or can he be elite, or is he somewhere in between? And who are the other X-Factor players, bless me, on offense? For Ohio State, it's whether or not the staff can mitigate bad D-line and O-line depth, and if any of you contradict me on that, as many have before, it's no different from saying that, like, Texas has some questions on the O-line, although they haven't had to rely on transfers as much as Ohio State has entering this season. Ohio State's brought in a lot of transfer O-linemen and offered even more. And then the D-line depth has been something Ohio State has complained about. Texas did bring in a lot of D-line transfers, but they returned some good players there, and Texas's incoming D-line transfers are ranked higher than Ohio State's O-line transfers. So it's interesting here. And also the drop-off at offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. If there is any. Is there any? Or is it a huge drop-off or somewhere in between? Same with Texas, losing Matthew Golden, losing Quinn Ewers, losing Kelvin Banks Jr. These teams only return about half of their production from last year, and it's week 1. So there's a good chance that whoever wins this game is not the better team at the end of the year. There's a very good chance of that. There's also a good chance that these teams look disgusting, disoriented, and it looks like maybe they've fallen off a bit from last year in week 1. And then at the end of the year, one of them might be better than they were last year, or both might be worse. That's the more likely outcome. But they're elite teams, and they're the two favorites to win the national championship. I'm concerned about Texas's red zone offense. I think Arch's mobility, if he grows eyes in the back of his head and better pocket presence, will help with that. But it's been a consistent theme under Sark. I liken it to Michigan with their red zone offensive issues in 2022 and 2021. You can get in the red zone. You have a good, you typically get in the red zone, but then the field goals versus the touchdowns, that can be tough. And also, I think that upside at defensive back, losing Makuba, losing the Thorpe Award winner from last year. Gosh, his name escapes me, and I absolutely hate that, so I'm going to look this up while talking. And also player experience. Those are concerns for Texas. In regards to Ohio State, when I look at their D-line, and I look at the fact that Hero Kanu was supposed to be in the 2 deep, Texas got him. They wanted Murad Watson, and Texas got him instead. And they do have Cade McDonald, who's big, and I like him. Jahdae Barron was the corner. How could I forget him? Jahdae Barron was awesome last year, and he'll do well in the pros. Cade McDonald is an X factor for Ohio State D tackle. Houston, many are saying is, but he's not 300 pounds, and he just put on a bunch of weight and is transitioning from edge to D tackle. So I don't think he'll be this immediate X factor player because of that. And then D end, you're relying on a transfer from the ACC, so the step up in competition is going to be pretty big. And then between Kenyatta Jackson Jr. and Caden Curry, they've had snaps, but they've never started. They've at best been in the rotation. So DT depth is alarming. DN depth is good, but the starts there is shaky. And then I think that tackle's going to be good. I love Saraveld and Ethan Onyanwa at tackle for Ohio State. The interior, I think, looked better last year than it was due to the staff avoiding it and running a bunch of counter, not trying to run on the inside, running a lot on the outside, where their receivers and tight ends were good at blocking. Their tackles were much better at blocking than their interior. And yeah, like Ohio State was good enough at so many other positions to where they could avoid center and avoid guard in many of their plays and be the best team in America. That speaks to how insane that team was. For Texas, I think that they replace a lot on D-line. They also replace a lot on the O-line. They did a better job overall in the transfer portal addressing the trenches, and I trust Kyle Flood and his O-line more than I do Bowen's predecessor in terms of Fry, because he's coached the unit, and his O-line. Just a little bit there. But I also trust Ohio State more at receiver, and they lost a big piece in Ibuka. Texas lost Golden. I trust Ohio State a bit more at tight end. They bring in Claire. Texas brings in Jack Andrees. And while Arch Manning has more experience under his belt than Sayin, I do trust Day more as a game manager and even QB developer than I do Sark. So outside of really, honestly, red zone offense and a little bit of the losses at DB for Texas and a little bit of the trenches for Ohio State, I love these teams. These are top 5 caliber teams. They can compete for and win a national championship in 2025. Some players to pay attention to outside of the obvious. So that's Arch Manning for Texas, Colin Simmons for Texas, and then Jeremiah Smith, and Caleb Downs for Ohio State. James Peoples and Bo Jackson, I think, will be really good by the end of the year at running back. Luke Montgomery and Ethan Onyanwa, got to pay attention to them at tackle and guard. Ohio State's wide receiver room, you will know the names of Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, and Mylan Graham if you don't already. I still like Edric Houston and Cade McDonald, even though I think the depth situation's questionable and Houston's a little light, but I like them. Kenyatta Jackson Jr. and Bo Atkinson at the end will be good players. Arvell Reese, I'm very high on him at linebacker, and obviously Sonny Styles comes back. And I think Jermaine Matthews Jr. and Devin Sanchez will be newer contributors at corner who I think will fare pretty well. For Texas, you got to think that C.J. Baxter coming back is going to impact their run game in a good way. Wisner comes back, and same with Jarrett Gibson. I think that this O-line at the beginning of the year will be shaky. There will be questions there. By the end of the year, I think this will be a top 10 unit with Cole Hudson, DJ Campbell, Neto Umeozulu, and Trevor Gooseby, along with Brandon Baker. Love that group. Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore Jr., Kalik Lockett, pay attention to them. Endries is probably not better than Claire, but he's close, and Claire's really, really good. So you're going to be hearing Endries' name called a lot. Their D-tackle room is deep. I love Cole Brevard especially, but they have, Murad Watson, Travis Shaw behind him, and some others. Colin Simmons, obviously. Excuse me there. Anthony Hill Jr., I think, is the best linebacker in America. And they got Trey Moore paired with him. Michael Taff returns at safety, and I think will be at the best in the SEC at safety, along with KJ Bolden. These rosters are deep. They're top 5 in preseason S&P Plus, and they return about 50% of their production. So let's get into the key matchup here. I think it's the pass rush and pass protection and the ground game. That's what I think it is. I think that both QBs, they need to be protected well enough to where they can make the, short, intermediate, quick throws. I don't think anyone is going to burn each other deep in this game. Texas, I just have enough questions about the wide receiver core in general, and then Ohio State has Caleb Downs to where I don't think they'll torch Ohio State deep a bunch. And then while Ohio State has Jeremiah Smith, their QB in Sayin doesn't have the upside Arch does, and it's his first game ever starting. And Texas's secondary last year was better than Ohio State's in terms of balance. Their corners were better. Safeties were worse, but secondary overall was better. And they have more continuity on the defensive side of the ball in terms of defensive coordinator and defensive coaching. So I don't think either team will go over the top on each other much. I can see one big play, or 2 or 3 through the air, but I think that a consistent ground game will be better. I think that Texas's front 7 is going to blow up that Ohio State O-line in terms of pass rush. I think that Ohio State's front 7, while I don't think is as good as the Texas front 7, I actually don't even think it's close. Manning was not good in the pocket last year. He was not good at mitigating it. He created a lot of pressures for himself, and Texas is replacing 4 out of their 5 offensive linemen. So Ohio State should be able to get significant amounts of pressure too. Whoever can stop the bleeding in pass protection, and then who can run the ball the best, I think is going to win. That is really it there. I mean, you have some other key matchups too, like special teams. Both teams had some questionable special teams last year. Ohio State got Jackson Corville in the portal, who I think will start there at kicker. He was pretty damn good. Texas got Mason Shipley, who's pretty damn good at kicker, and then Jack Bomeister at punter. So special teams could change this game. The QB run game, I'm factoring that into the rushing game. That will impact this game too. If you're Ohio State, you got to feel like your interior is better than the Texas one if you believe in your current players. I'm not inside the Ohio State locker room. I assume they believe in their players because usually everyone does entering week 1. You got to believe you should be able to run the ball up the middle with your returning interior O-line and Texas replacing some at D-tackle. However, Sayin is not necessarily mobile. And it would be very helpful when Texas's defense, like Texas has 5 or 6 playable D-tackles at 300 pounds. And then they have Colin Simmons and Ethan Burke, who's more of a true defensive end. Simmons is a faster, twitchier edge outside linebacker. And Texas is really deep at linebacker too. if all you're going to do if you're Ohio State is just running back runs, that may get pretty predictable and old with this Texas front. Maybe you mix in Lincoln Keenholz. Maybe you use Jeremiah Smith or Caleb Downs or some really twitchy player to try and get to the outside. Maybe you rotate a bunch. I don't know what you do because I'm not a coach. These guys are all much smarter and will forever be smarter than I am. Texas is an advantage there because they got Arch Manning. Arch Manning can run the read option over and over again and has the speed and athleticism to make that work. I don't think Sayin does. So that makes Texas running the ball a bit easier. And Ohio State has the two best players in college football. So if any team is going to get the big, impactful, instant lightning strike scores, it's probably going to be Ohio State. But then again, I look at consistency here, and I think consistency screams Texas. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be. And I hate how trendy of a pick this has become. And yet at the same time, look, Texas is more balanced. Texas right now has about as many 5 stars as Ohio State does, and theirs on average are older and more evenly spread out amongst the roster, whereas Ohio State's 5 stars and higher level 4 stars are, usually younger, and the 5 stars in particular are concentrated at wide receiver. And they're probably not going to go 5 wide the whole game. Although if they did, if they could pass protect, that would be scary. Because Ohio State's wide receiver room is easily number 1 in America. Clemson and Auburn are also elite, but they don't even touch Ohio State's. I'm picking Texas to win because I think that they will do a better job of running the ball. They have better running backs. They have a better QB. They have a more mobile QB. And you can love it, you can hate it, but Texas has done better on O-line than Ohio State has recently. They just have. I mean, look at last year. Texas had Contravion Wisner and Matthew Golden as their best wide receiver and running back. Ohio State had Travion Henderson and Jeremiah Smith. And then also Quinshon Judkins was better than anyone Texas had at running back. And yet their rushing offenses in conference play were pretty close together. Oh, you also got to factor in that Howard had way better pocket presence than Ewers did. Way better. So when you factor in sacks to the rushing game, that disproportionately goes Ohio State than Texas. All to say, Texas has the better defensive front. Texas is bigger on the lines of scrimmage than Ohio State is. And Texas, despite losing more starters than Ohio State does in the O-line, when you dig into snaps and when you dig into chemistry, the fact that Texas's starting 5 will all be from the same school since they got to Texas, and they're the same age, if not a little bit older, and also, again, bigger than the average Ohio State offensive line, and Ohio State will at least have 1 transfer starting in that game, I begin to think to myself that Texas should win the line of scrimmage. And that combined with the quarterback making his first start, and that quarterback having elite receivers, but facing the one defense that could actually force Ohio State to go to other targets than their preferred number 1, makes me think that Texas is going to win and that Texas is going to cover. I will actually go as far to say that I think the wrong team is favored here. I think that Texas should be favored over Ohio State. It won't happen because the minute that happens, I'll tell you, the minute that happens, 90 to 95% of the public money and public betting will be on Ohio State to win immediately because their fan base is that large, that wealthy, and that fanatical. And Ohio State doesn't lose at home. I mean, the only Ryan Day losses were to a 2022 Michigan team that in an alternate universe could have gone 15-0, an Oregon team that had an awesome rushing attack against a Kerry Coombs defense, and last year's Michigan team, where Ohio State's O-line in that game was so awful, and their game plan was so awful, and Michigan had such an elite kicker to where they won by 1 score. I mean, the fact that Ohio State could even lose that game, they were even capable of losing that game, and yet Texas never had a loss like that last year, also plays into this. Ohio State's ceiling is higher than most teams, if not almost any team, because of the athletes they have on the outside and the fact they have the 2 best players in college football and recruit well, and Day's a top 2 coach. But because of how they've built themselves, they also have one of the lower floors of the top-end teams if you can make them question using their outside players. If you can bait them into trying to be this game control, we're going to run the ball, and we're going to beat you by running the ball team, then their floor just kind of collapses. At least that's how it was last year. Texas last year didn't have that same type of floor, but their floor wasn't exactly extremely high. Just see the struggles they had at QB or in running the ball. And they didn't have the same ceiling Ohio State did. That's why Ohio State beat them last year. And that's why that if Ohio State wins this game, it will be exactly how they won the Cotton Bowl. Texas will probably have more sustainable drives and will probably look like the bigger team and probably win the battle of the trenches. But Ohio State, just on the outside, is so much better that they're able to get some big plays, and they win the turnover battle because of the home field advantage and the fact that Ohio State has a player in Caleb Downs who's unlike any other. I think he'll at least get one interception or one first turnover in this game. I'm excited to watch it. It'll be one of the first games of the college football season. Noon kickoff, week 1. Man, whoever wins this game, I think, is a lock to reach the college football playoff. Whoever wins. So this is a game that has some urgency to it because Texas and Ohio State do have 2 losable games outside of this matchup. And I think either team will miss the playoff if they go 9-3, which, again, isn't likely. I mean, Vegas is picking one of these teams to win and yet favors both to reach the playoffs. But this is still an impactful game, for sure. Thank you for watching College Football with Sam. Make sure that you've liked the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and team playlists and podcasts in the description, join the free Discord server where we talk college football 24/7, and have commented your thoughts down below. Check out the description for any ways you can support the channel monetarily. Everything else I've asked you to do is completely free, and your support means the world to me. We're trying to become the next big thing on college football YouTube. 6-figure subscribers, maybe 1 million one day. I think we can do that. And also check out any videos or playlists, anything in these columns right here, where there will be videos and playlists. Yeah, you get the point. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one.